I'm sure you are all familiar with all of these magnificent images across our wonderful city. We are very fortunate to grow up and be raised in one of the most livable cities in the world. We have amazing sporting arenas, a bustling and busy city centre, luscious national parks, and a transport network of cars, trams, trains, and buses that enable us to travel to many points of the city.
A truly amazing city indeed. Hi there, I'm John Batner, and I'm a Melbourne historian. Today I'm going to try and tell you a little bit about Melbourne. Now, Melbourne has quite a contentious history. There is a lot of debate about who actually founded it. Still today, there are numerous people still arguing about who is our true founder. Since the early 1800s, around 1803 to be exact, we've had many European explorers set foot on this great land. They've surveyed potential areas for settlement. You may have even heard of some people like John Pascal Faulkner or John Batman, or maybe even Gilbert the Cat. Throughout this video, I will endeavour to teach you a little bit about each of them. But first, I must start by saying that there is only one true traditional owner of this land. That is, the Wurundjeri people. They have a long, proud history in this area, and it all changed once the Europeans began exploring. I would like to now show you a message from a good friend of mine, Colin Hunter. He is a Wurundjeri elder and has a deep knowledge of Melbourne's history.
Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that today we're meeting on the lands of my ancestors, the Wurundjeri people. And I'd like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to my elders, both past and present. Wominjeka welcome. Wurundjeri Ball, Yemen Kondi Bik. The Wurundjeri people welcome everyone to the land today. Wurundjeri no, Budambal War, Kondi Nagnak, Dubadan Bik Bulik Bor, Tilikan. The Wurundjeri people want you to look after and protect the land as they did long before. Wurundjeri country extends from the inner city of Melbourne. It goes across the mountains of the Great Dividing Range, west to the Werribee River, south to the Mordialloc Creek and east to Mount Baw Baw. And the Wurundjeri people are part of the Kulin Nations and of the Warong language group. Hello, my name is Colin Hunter Jr. or Woolert, meaning possum, a name given to me by my grandmother as a young boy. I'm a proud and passionate 7th-generation Wurundjeri man and a direct descendant of Bibijan, who was Nullingeta, or head of the tribe at time at first settlement. It's through my grandmother, Gumbriar, meaning white dove, or Rani Tiny or Nana, she was known to us mob, that I have Aboriginal culture and heritage in my life today, so for that I say thanks, Nan. My grandmother was one of the last Aboriginal people born in the early 1920s up at Corranderk Mission in Hillsville, before she got moved up to Barham on the Murray River, New South Wales. In Aboriginal culture, a great deal of respect is given to the land, the plants and the animals alike. And these gum leaves I've got in my hand here, they're a gift from the Wurundjeri people to you. And the significance of them is they'll keep you safe while on country and give you the accesses to the resources while you're on country. While you're on Wurundjeri country, you're welcome to everything from the tops of the trees to the roots of the earth. So Wominjeka welcome. Thank you. The Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of Melbourne, have had a special connection to the area we know today as the city of Yarra, which has extended back tens of thousands of years when their great spirit creator, Bunjil, created the land, the plants and the people. Today we're meeting at one of the most culturally significant sites to the Wurundjeri people, the confluence of the Yarra River and Merri Creek. Down the Yarra River to my left was the site of the burial of Billaberi, one of the last Nullingetas of the Wurundjeri people. And to my right down the Yarra River was the site of William Thomas, the Aboriginal Protector's Hut. And down the Merri Creek further, we believe that's the area where the Batmen Treaty was signed. This site was a special place to the Aboriginal people. It was a place where people would gather for trade, ceremony and law, and to settle disputes. The colonisation of Melbourne had devastating effects on the Wurundjeri community. The clearing of bush to build roads, and even back in the 70s when they built the Eastern Freeway, the changing of the course of the Yarra River. By the 1860s, it's believed that the Wurundjeri people were down to 124 descendants, with 44 of them being children. So that's how close colonisation came to wiping out the Wurundjeri community. Today, in the 21st century, the Wurundjeri community is still alive and well. Their continuous connection to country is still strong and unbroken.
Some very powerful and moving words indeed. I'd like to thank Cullen for that message. I'd like to now tell you a little bit about the early exploration of Melbourne, and tell you a story about one individual named William Buckley. He was no explorer, though. He was a convict. Now, some of you may be aware of him, and he certainly has a fascinating story. Back in 1803, William Buckley was aboard a ship heading towards Melbourne. He was being sent there to start a convict settlement at Sullivan Bay. Now, that's near Sorrento. Some of you actually may go there for holidays these days. Now, unfortunately, this was not a good place to settle. There was a lack of fresh water, and the soil was poor for growing crops. The officers in charge soon decided to head towards Van Diemen's Land, which some of you may know now as Tasmania. But on Christmas Eve, before they had left, Buckley escaped, planning to head to Sydney. Yes, I know. On foot, it seems crazy. Now, all his partners decided to turn back after a few days, but Buckley was determined to escape. Battling severe dehydration and starvation, he was amazingly discovered by the Wathaurong tribe. They thought he was a reincarnated elder. For the next 32 years, he lived with them and learnt their ways. Here is a scene of him demonstrating his hunting skills that he developed and how he was able to catch eel. Enjoy.
I became experts at catching eels by spearing them in the rivers. Good man, Yarra, Bapuirinyak. Eels are best eaten roasted, but they are smoked to travel with. We needed many eels to trade, as keeping contact with other tribes were a way of keeping the peace.
Just amazing, isn't it? Now, 32 years later brings us to 1835, and this is where Melbourne's history is quite contentious. So let's focus on one of our founders, Mr. John Batman. Now, John was born in Parramatta, New South Wales on the 21st of January, 1801. His father was William Batman, an ex-convict for receiving stolen goods. When John was growing up, he was an apprentice to the local blacksmith. Now, a blacksmith is a person that works with steel and iron to make things. As John grew up, he hated being a son of a convict and was always looking to improve his standing in society. At the age of 20, he moved to Van Diemen's Land. Now remember, that's Tassie. During his time there, he actually captured a notorious bushranger. As a reward, he wanted some land in Victoria, but the government denied his request. So in May 1835, he decided to sail to the mainland of Australia on a boat named Rebecca. He explored much of Port Phillip Bay. When he arrived, he approached the local Wurundjeri elders with a contract to buy their land. You may know it as the Batmen Treaty. Now, William Buckley was actually around during this time and was tried to be a mediator between the two. Now, obviously, the Wurundjeri people had no idea what they were signing. And some people today even believe that John may have forged the signature, faked them himself. Who knows? Now, for a brief period of time in 1835, Melbourne was even named Batmania. No, not after the superhero, though. Now, unfortunately for John, he only lived in Melbourne for 4 years, due to an illness that he was battling. So there it is. That's the story of John Batman's founding of Melbourne. Now let's talk about the other significant member of Melbourne's history, and that is John Pascoe Fawkner. John Pascoe Fawkner was born in England in 1792. When he was a young boy in 1803, he was aboard a ship to Van Diemen's Land. Now, the reason why he was on this ship was because his father was arrested for receiving stolen goods. Yes, just like John Batman's father as well. Now, Fawkner's father was sentenced to 14 years transportation. Now, what that is, that's like going to jail these days. However, back then they were sent all the way to Australia. Amazingly, on this ship also was William Buckley. Yes, this is the ship that he escaped from when they were at Sullivan Bay. Quite interesting, hey? Now, a few years later in Hobart, Fawkner made a mistake. He helped 7 convicts escape, and he was caught. He was sentenced to 500 lashes and 3 years hard labour in Newcastle, New South Wales. In 1819, after his release, Fawkner and his wife moved back to Van Diemen's Land in Launceston. They got married in 1822. John started a newspaper and he also built a pub for the town. In April of 1835, Fawkner purchased a boat called the Enterprise. He wanted to use this boat to search for a suitable settlement in Port Phillip Bay. In August 1835, the boat was ready to leave, but at the last moment, creditors prevented Fawkner from leaving because he owed money to the government. Money, money, money. Therefore, aboard the Enterprise were the following people. There was Captain Peter Hunter, John Lancy, a master mariner, George Evans, who was a builder, William Jackson and Robert Marr, both carpenters, Evans, yes, a funny name, Evans. He was actually George Evans' servant. There was Thomas Morgan and Charles Wise, both Fawkner's servants, James Gilbert, a blacksmith, his wife Mary, and her cat. Yes, a cat was aboard the Enterprise. On the 30th of August 1835, all these settlers disembarked to build their store and clear land to grow vegetables. The Fawkners arrived on the 16th of October. During Fawkner's time in Melbourne, he opened the first hotel on the corner of William Street and Flinders Lane. He published the Melbourne Advertiser, which was the area's first newspaper, on January 1, 1838. And he was also a Member of Parliament. Yes, he certainly was a busy little boy, wasn't he? He passed away in 1869 at the age of 77. But but he certainly lived an eventful life. That's John Pascoe Faulkner. So there you have it, kids. The history about the founding of Melbourne. It's quite a tricky and complicated history, isn't it? You can see why there are so many different beliefs from many people. But I guess you're all big enough to have your own view. If you were to ask me, though, who are the founders of Melbourne? I would say that it is the original members of the enterprise who first set foot on this land with an actual intention to settle. Who knows, maybe the cat, Gilbert, was first to step on our land and is actually our true founder. Well, I hope you enjoy your learning journey about Melbourne, and for now, it's goodbye.